Hello Virgo, and welcome to your March 2023 reading. This is for Virgo sun or rising signs for the month of March. So we're adding something a little extra this month. I wanted to add in cards from this deck just to kind of concentrate the information a little bit more. Even though it is a collective reading, we can maybe just zero in a little bit more around like what area of life this is kind of showing up for you in. So, or at least the energy that can help you figure out where in life to apply this general reading if you're not getting a personal reading with me. So what we have showing up here is Mars. That's some powerful energy. Currently in the tropical system, we have Mars in Gemini. So we're going to pull the rest of the cards so we can get a sense of what is happening for this month, for the beginning, middle, and end of the month for my Virgos. All right. All right, and there. Well, this is an interesting reading so far, Virgo. So this is the challenge that's showing up. And also we're going to take a look at what spiritual advice is coming through for Virgo. Super interesting, Virgo. So let's just make sure that these are all in frame. So let's start out with Mars. I have a strong feeling that Mars has to do with how things are coming through by the end of this month, but let's take a look at Mars first. So you may be familiar with Mars a little bit, having to do with, I would say, our will, our courage, our bravery, also our yes and our no, right? Like there are some pretty strong boundaries that get laid down with Mars. Some people attribute Mars to like the energy of like war and the warrior. And I would say that inside of like that archetype of the warrior, there's a need for courage and bravery, and there's a need for the will to go forward, right? And to have those strong yes and strong no's, right? The will to drive forward or the will to stop. And so I feel like there are some themes that are around this that are coming through pretty strongly for you, Virgo, for this month. So, and I think this will become more clear as we're looking at the rest of the story that's kind of unfolding here. Starting out at the beginning of the month when we're looking at the Eight of Pentacles, I'm just seeing that some of you are involved in continuing to hone your craft or to study, maybe involved in an apprenticeship of some kind, right? That's the Eight of Pentacles, is like continuing to hone our skills in our chosen craft, whatever that is. Now, whether that's something that you do for money or not, maybe you're an artist and you are learning ceramics and apprenticing and practicing your craft in that way, right? But maybe this is very literally like you being in some kind of learning process and developing your skills. So there's something with regard to this that's coming up. This is a part of the theme for the first third of the month, right? And then we move into, like, as we're getting into the middle part of the month, we have the Page of Pentacles. So more Pentacles happening here, right? We could say that the Page is definitely also a student and very studious. So I do feel a strong like thing for some of you coming through around learning. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be, again, learning in with respect to career or purpose or something that's going to bring you into a space of like financial abundance or anything like that. It could actually just have to do with even like interpersonal relationships, close relationships, where there's some kind of learning that is occurring in that space as well. But in the middle of the month, one of the strong pulls that I feel to talk about with the Page of Pentacles is also around just that the solutions are at hand, that you need to trust, like what you see is what you get, right? Trust what you see, trust what's in front of you. This is one of those times where it's like what you see is what it is, right? And you might question yourself around like, is it this, is it that? And it's like, this is where you look at the facts, right? Like earth signs are more pragmatic, right? And being an earth sign yourself, if you really have placements in your chart that are strong earth kind of qualities, then you might really relate to this, right? They tend to be more pragmatic in their way of approaching and thinking about things. And so this is one of the times to not get caught up in the air qualities of thinking, but to be more pragmatic and to realize like what's in front of you is what is. That's just how it is. And so you need to recognize that you have what you need to know, the information you need to know, what's there is already at your fingertips. So the solutions are there and in front of you, and there are more to come. There are more on the horizon. So I find this interesting because like we go from this kind of energy to moving into the end of the month. And I feel like this is really going to make sense for some of you. I could see this going into a few different directions for what area of life this could have to do with regarding, you know, either career, purpose, path, or relationships also, right? So next we come into the Devil card at the end of the month. And, you know, the Devil card has a lot of really big themes that come up, and I want to address a few of them because, you know, I can see this applying to a bunch of different areas. One of the main themes with the Devil card that really comes up for me right now in this particular moment is this idea of feeling tied out of obligation to like feeling chained to certain ideas or ways of doing things or being, or to people or to projects or to whatever it is, and feeling like there's some kind of tie that's there that you're obligated to be a part of that you're not necessarily needing to be a part of. And even if you don't leave it, even if it's not something that you need to leave, I think even just the consideration of understanding that you are not tied to these things, that you are not chained to anything, gives you probably the perspective that's needed for where you're trying to go next and for understanding your pathway going forward, right? When you open up the possibility and when you open up you know, yourself and realize that you're not actually chained to anything, so much opens up in that space, right? So the other thing about the Devil card that comes through is that this can be about boundaries, you know, and about also who we're tied to and in which ways we're tied to them, right? Are you letting your desires kind of run rampant and get in the way of something that actually feels like is going to move you in the direction of your progressing into the next level that you want to get to? Not to say that your desires are bad. Like, I'm not someone who's going to like shame any kind of desires. I'm actually a desire advocate. So I would say just checking in with yourself and making sure that you're not tying yourself to anything that feels obligatory. You're not tying yourself to anything that feels toxic, anything that takes away your personal power, your personal choice. Also that you're not normalizing or staying inside of any kinds of situations that chip away at your personal power, your ability to think for yourself, and to live in a world of possibility, right? So really we're talking about limitations. Yes, this can sometimes, you know, point to toxic environments or people, or also like addictive, you know, kinds of qualities and pitfalls and things of that nature. But I'm not really getting that feeling here, Virgo. I'm just feeling like this really does have to do with something around your personal power. And the reason that I'm feeling like it's tied into that is because we have Mars showing up as the area of life where this is, you know, where this is really the concern. So I feel that this progression of like what you're feeling, the themes that you're going through the first two parts of the month, right? The two first thirds, we can say, of the month, leading into the last part of March is like, I mean, I won't get into all of the astrology here and now, but what I will say is that after the 24th or 25th of March, we're really moving into this new space. And I feel like there is this kind of break free, kind of liberating feeling, like a pocket of energy that comes through for a bunch of people. Obviously, it depends on your personal chart to really speak to exactly where that is. But for you, Virgo, I'm going to say that there is some theme that is coming up around this, around your personal power, around your yes and your no, around your boundaries, around your willpower and your desire to move forward in certain ways, and having the bravery to really make sure that you check yourself, make sure that you're not tied to anything that doesn't feel aligned for you, that doesn't drag you into areas that are unclear or that are a part of like, you know, other worlds that you don't necessarily want to be tied to. That's one of the main things. Like, it doesn't show it in this particular deck, like you can kind of vaguely maybe see like there's a man and a woman over here, and typically in the Devil card there is a man and woman chained to this block, and the chains around their neck are loose, and it's like they could walk away at any particular point. Like they can actually just remove the chains, like put it up over their neck and just drop them and walk away if they chose to. But it's kind of like the elephant, that is, from a baby, how they train them like with a rope, and it's like so strong that they feel like they can't move away, to the point where when they get to be these massive beasts, right, like they really have the power, right, the power to break free if they chose to in a moment's notice. But because they've been conditioned, or they've been conditioned to normalize that experience, it's difficult for them to actually move away, to break away. And so you want to look at like where these particular themes could be showing up in your life, and maybe that's around your abilities and the things that you are that you're working on developing and honing, right? Perhaps it's around that, and breaking free of the ideas that are present, that because this is not just about people and situations. This can be about your perspectives, right? The paradigms that you're living inside of, needing to break free of upper limits and making sure that you can really just move forward in your life. Maybe you are continually being in student mode and you need to break free and move into a more masterful place and like own your personal power, right? Not give your power away, because sometimes the Devil card can represent that, is about the way that we give our power away. So these are the themes that are coming up as we progress through the month. And then we have the challenge that's coming up for you. And in the challenge, we see we have the Knight of Swords. It's interesting because in a challenge position, the Knight of Swords, I think, really does speak to how this is not about rushing, right? It's not to say don't move. It's not about no movement and just like not moving at all, but it's about actually probably not rushing headlong into something, and waiting, and like not waiting, what's the word I want to say? It's just like slowing it down a little bit. You might feel the need to rush through things. You might feel the need to like kind of cut through things and just kind of like jump forward. But this is not about that. This is about you needing to maybe slow it down a little bit, really feel into the experience and not rush forward and try to make things move too quickly. When we look at your spiritual advice, what we have is the Eight of Cups. I really love this card because, well, it doesn't show it in this particular card, but normally the Eight of Cups actually shows an eclipse. So sometimes when I get the sense that like it might be something connected, when I saw this card, I initially thought, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is something that's going to come full circle and complete when we hit eclipse season, right? Or like either it'll become clear at eclipse season or at the end of eclipse season when we move into our first eclipse season of the year in 2023. So just as a side note for any of you who follow astrology, that's something to keep in mind. Otherwise, the Eight of Cups is this card that, yes, typically talks about, the weight and the heaviness of things emotionally and energetically that need to be just like left behind to move forward on a path of your own personal path of like spiritual awakening or your spiritual journey. In one sense, like that's one aspect of this particular card. And normally this particular person is kind of like, you can see they're in terrain that's kind of like going upward. And the symbology here is to recognize that, maybe there are things that your guides are saying that feel like they're weighing down and a bit heavy, and they're much, right? They're just not quite, there are things that are not quite working that you need to let go of. So letting go in a different fashion, right? Like this is more breaking free. This is more letting go and moving towards higher ground, right? So you notice like normally in the card, you can tell more clearly that the person is going on a path that's progressing towards higher ground. And so very similar to the Hermit kind of energy. This is definitely, especially because normally it has the eclipse on here, and it has to do with that kind of inward, like internal introspective kind of energy. and moving towards like a higher frequency, a higher ground, which is why sometimes I think it can be associated with like a spiritual journey, right? Because we're just going on this kind of path away from things that feel heavy and lower vibration and that are pulling us down, maybe weighing us down. So your spiritual guides are talking about this for you, is like to focus on this aspect of your journey. I get the sense that there are some of you out there that are just like, oh, please, come on. I've been doing this already for so long. I don't want to continue to do this. And perhaps that's true. You know, maybe you've been doing this for a while and there's just some more to go, you know, and I want to actually kind of maybe get just a little bit of like, let's just see, because I want to give like this, that one was kind of popping up. Yeah, you're heading in, like, this is the, like, around the bend, you're heading towards a position where you're going to be like really balancing and weighing things out. But I feel like, you know, you're going to have some more perspective after you take some time here, right? I love the mirroring of what's happening through the end of the month into the beginning, or into the spiritual advice that you're getting here, right? There's this kind of like, what do you need to break away from? What do you need to understand you're not tied to, so that you can experience the freedom of moving towards like what feels the best for you and moving towards higher ground to a higher frequency and leaving the lower frequencies behind, right? There's you know, if you've ever been in the coaching community, like there's definitely this piece about like, you know, if you're not free to say no, then you really aren't free to say yes. It's not a real yes when you say yes, right? If you are in situations where your no wouldn't be allowed or accepted, or where you don't feel like you could say no, you feel like you're tied in some way where you can't express your no, then whatever yeses you have are not true yeses, if that makes sense. So, you know, that's something to also consider. I feel like that might be for a couple of you out there. So I hope that this was helpful. You know, definitely if you want kind of like more of a full picture of like how this has been unfolding, you can check out the new moon reading that I did towards the end of the month in February, which wasn't too long ago because we're right about in between. And I will have the full moon readings up, which are shorter, about like 5 minutes-ish readings, that will be out on the 7th of March. So just, you can keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I would say get a personal reading. The description box down below has the information for that if you really want to know specifically how this is unfolding for you. So I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.